report.
Yeah, they have a much longer draft report today.
Yeah.
Yes, we shot it.
I think we probably should. It's very little.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and begin the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind board meeting. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Okay, we do not, we don't have any public comment signed up. So that'll take us to our first item, which is the approval of meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Second? Is there a second? Okay, we're starting our USDB meeting. Is there a second? Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the June 7th, 2019 USDB board meeting minutes. Is there any discussion to that motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Okay, item 4, we will not be having a monthly budget report. Is that correct? Or we will. Oh, we are. Okay, sorry. Sorry, okay. Carl is not here, but we have someone else. Introduce yourself, please.
Go ahead now. Okay. It's always nice to have the tutorial on the microphones. Carl Empey is on vacation. I'm Todd Darrington, the financial manager for USDB. I've just come to give a brief update. We are heavy in year-end closeout, but at this time we do not anticipate missing the deadline of August 16th to provide year-end financial statements. We are on pace to have a carry forward this year, but that exact number is still being determined as we wait for pension and OPEB liabilities to be posted by the state of finance. So at this time, we're good.
Okay. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, there are no questions. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not at this time.
Okay. That completes the monthly budget report. Okay, next we have USIMAC presentation. Armando Venegas? Did I pronounce that right? Yes. Okay. Go ahead and push the button, and okay, there we go. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
I hope I have my computer muted, but I heard that sound, so I'm not sure if there's any IT person around if they can help me mute it better. But it shows that it's muted. Hopefully it doesn't make any unseemly noise. Okay. I presented once before about a year ago and made quite a big noise. I don't want that to happen again. So thank you for having me today. I'm Armando Venegas. I'm the director of USIMAC, the Utah State Instructional Materials Access Center, and we're housed at USDB. We're a statewide function, so really under USBE in many respects, in many regards. Quentin Williams is here with me, who works for USDB, and he is the specialist for assistive technology. And so today we're just going to give you an update on USIMAC, where we're at, and then also a little bit about one of the prevailing themes through some of the conferences that we went to, which was accessibility at the very end. So USIMAC is a collaboration between USBE and USDB, also school districts throughout the state, charter schools, as per our statute. And what we do is we produce instruction materials, textbooks, readers, what have you, that students need who are blind or visually impaired for the students throughout the state of Utah. And so We just ensure that as the orders come in, that we produce them in a timely fashion, the students get them in a timely fashion as school starts, and stay ahead of them as they go throughout the school year. USIMAC was founded in 2009, and so this is our 10th year, and I've been director for the past year. Previous to that, I was here at the State Board of Education, so it's good to be back. So some updates on our facilities and team. So USIMAC has a new director, obviously myself. We have an executive assistant, 2 coordinators or customer service personnel, 7 Braille transcribers. When I came on board, we only had 3 Braille transcribers, and so now we have 7, which is a great feat because it's very hard to find transcribers, so we actually train them. We have 2 more in training right now. 3 tactile graphics specialists, 4 Braille quality assurance teams. So the quality assurance is basically proofreaders who read in Braille, then we have a sighted peer who would be reading in print and make sure that the quality of the book is accurate. And we do that. We do up to 3 proofreading of the textbook to make sure that the quality is there. We also have a distribution specialist as well. This year we updated, so thanks to the legislature, we had one-time funds that allowed us to purchase certain items and also have more personnel. One was a new scanner. This is a automatic scanner, quite costly, but it does a great job, and you just put the book in, it scans it automatically. We don't have the need now to cut the book, because previously we had to cut every book that came in order to scan them. So now we don't have to cut the textbooks. So this has been a great help to us. Also in this past year, we updated our website. In our new website, first of all, it's much more accessible for our staff. We do have 4 blind or visually impaired staff members on staff, and our staff of 27. And so we wanted to make sure that they would be able to access the website just like anybody else. And so we have up-to-date guidelines on the website, resource tab. In fact, I might just go to it really quick to show you our website really quickly. So in here, we have the different tabs, but the one I wanted to point out to you today was the guidelines. So we have our ordering policy, and also the APH fund policy is also on the website, available for everyone to find. We also have our preferred Braille network. So these are contracted employees that we hire. We have about 27 out and about throughout the nation that help us to produce Braille for students throughout the state of Utah. So that gives you just a little overview there of our website. Okay, so also we updated our mission and vision this year. So the staff came together throughout the year in our quarterly staff meetings and created our mission statement and our vision statement. So we have it there on your screen, also in your materials. And it's really important to understand that we are here for the students. We are here to make sure the students who are blind or visually impaired receive their materials on time and quality instructional materials. We also provide AT equipment for them as well, and that is primarily through the APH federal quota funds. In the next 5 years, our vision is that we will continue to implement better resources and methods in providing accessible materials for students who are blind and visually impaired. And we'll also be there, be available to train staff throughout the state of Utah as well, and include clients in the future will include other states throughout the nation, because we do create quite a few Braille instructional materials, which is in the new UEB format, and so it would be great to have those available for students throughout the whole United States, not just Utah, if it's a possibility, and that's what we're going to try to do in the next 5 years. Also, when I came in, we updated our Memorandum of Understanding and also our APH policies. And the reason for that was the legislature, in a way, funded USIMAC in such a way so we don't have to split the cost with the districts anymore. So districts don't have to opt in. Before, they needed to opt in with a certain percentage in order to avail themselves of the services of USIMAC. Now they do not. And so that funding allowed, now anybody could just, any district, any LEA in the state can avail themselves of our services, but there is a policy, a MOU, that they need to sign off on, just in order that we have an understanding of what we do and what they do and what we need to do together. So in those policies, we have a section that talks about eligibility and orders and modifications and cancellations, production timelines, distribution, delivery, and return of educational materials. The return of educational materials is something that always was part of our policies, but was not necessarily enforced throughout the years. And so that is something that that we have enforced this year, this past year, and in the current year we are in right now. And the reason behind that is that a textbook, say a 12th grade biology book or high school biology book, in Braille, it could be maybe about 70 volumes of Braille. So a small book about this size could be really, really big. Not only that, to produce that book, it cost maybe between $30,000 $35,000. And so to have that book out and just gone and not available for another student would be not a good, wise use of funds, of federal and state funds. And so we bring it back into a repository for another student to use should the need arise and they need that book. We can send it out again. So that was one of the things that we have worked on this year, and it's been quite successful, not without controversy, of course. I met with special ed directors back in the fall of 2018 and also in July of 2019, so last month, and to address some of the concerns that some of these policies have created. And so we adjusted some of our procedures in order to meet some of the feedback that we got from the field, including the process to renew items that are needed for students throughout the summer, if they needed them throughout the summer for the next school year. Also, the possibility to distribute remaining APH funds. APH quota funds are federal funds that are made available for the use for students who have been identified and through a census, a national census, and I won't go into all the details. It's a very long explanation about that. But basically, the possibility of any remaining funds, the way the fiscal year runs, it's October through September. So at the beginning of the year, we have that option now to distribute those funds back to the districts based on the amount of students that they have through the census that was performed. And so those are a couple of items that we considered through feedback from the field. Future projects, we were trying to increase our warehouse space to house more textbooks, especially now that we are in the new UEB format. That arsenal, if you will, of books is growing quite extensively, so we have to make sure we have enough space. This year also we updated our working space in such a way that everyone is working out together. We were sparse throughout the school, the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind up in Ogden, and so now we're all together again, and that's great. We also are looking to create a prison Braille program, and that is we have a meeting actually next week to discuss that further. We are working to become a provider, as I mentioned before, to other states through the LUI database of accessible format titles, and we also want to develop and deliver statewide training for TVIs throughout the state. So teachers of the visually impaired. And just in a few seconds here, just wanted to mention that some of our staff, and Quentin as well, went to an AT conference, and CSUN, it was in California. This is through California University at Northridge, and then also CTE BVI, which is the California Conference for Teachers of the Visually Impaired. This past year. And so one of the prevailing themes throughout that was accessibility. And I know you're very aware of that, but we thought we would mention just a small mention about that because sort of the litigation has been growing out of, not talking necessarily out in a school situation, but an employee situation where an employee needs more accessibility to the website, be able to access the telephones, et cetera, that kind of things. I employ 4 visually blind and visually impaired employees. Quentin is also is employed by USDB. And so some of the areas was web accessibility, document accessibility, software application accessibility, conference and meeting accessibility. So all these areas, I just wanted to bring that to you. So in your handouts or in your packet there is a page that talks about the different areas, and it's the WCAG standards, or the standards for web accessibility. You can take a look through those when you have a chance if you want to look further into that, but we just thought it would be important. And I'll have Quentin just give a small also feedback from his perspective as he went with us as well. And then we will be done, ready for questions.
Thanks, Armando. So when we attended the CSUN conference, a lot of, what's that?
Keep going.
Okay. A lot of what we found and experienced is that designing an accessible experience from the ground up is the preferred method instead of adding it as an afterthought. And like Armando stated, this can be in regards to website accessibility, documents, and other newsletters, making sure they're in the right formats and that kind of thing. And so one of the common themes was born accessible. And I've actually been working with Safe UT and a bunch of other operations to make sure that their apps and services are up to these standards. And so it's just exciting to see the direction that we're headed. And I think it's an exciting time for accessibility. So we just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention and make sure that that's being thought about in all the different programs and organizations that you guys are involved with.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to add as well that Quentin has been able to be helpful to the State Board of Education in testing, because there is a big push as well. We've appreciated that on state accessibility for blind and visually impaired on the state assessment. So Quentin, I hope you don't mind me using the term, he's been our guinea pig, but he's willing. And he's been awesome and be able to provide not only USDB feedback on our accessibility in our school and our website, but also for the state, and I have really appreciated that.
Okay, thank you. And we're here for questions, if you have any questions for us.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Board Member Belknap.
I have several, but I will do two, and then if that's okay, Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. One is, you were talking about either sharing and or training other people in other states. My question would be, are you planning to rent, purchase, or have them pay us for the work we're doing for that? How does that work?
Yeah, we have not yet established how we're going to do that. It's just a goal for the future in the next 5 years, but we don't have yet the particulars, so I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer for that.
How that would work.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I appreciate a comment that I would have is that you are giving the districts an opportunity to renew an item rather than returning it and then going back and getting it and going back and getting it. I appreciate that. Is there a copy of the MOU that we could see that you create with the districts so that we can see what policies you're requiring of them?
Definitely. That's found on our website under policies, and I'll show you exactly where.
Armando, will you just send me one?
Oh, sure.
Well,
I
let's
will
send it
to you.
through,
I will.
let's send it
Through
through
Lorraine.
Miss Lorraine.
Okay,
So-
sure, definitely, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Bolter.
Okay, so you said in 2018, there was legislation that ended the cost share programs with LEAs.
Correct.
So if an LEA decides not to do this or to opt out, they would have to do an MOU, and then what happens with their funding, or do they keep their funding? Like, where are you funded now, basically? And if an LEA opt-outs, then what does that mean?
Okay, Superintendent Coleman.
Great question. At that time, the state board requested the funding from the legislature, and they gave it to us in the session, so that in essence, districts no longer have to pay. They all just have access to USIMAC, which is really a board program, not a USDB program per se. So that's the simple answer.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I was receiving some emails about that, so I wanted to just clarify that. Funding isn't coming from an LEA.
No, it used to be that they would
It
have to
used to.
pay
Okay.
into the program if they wanted to do cost sharing. Now they just have access to
They
it.
have access, and then they can
Yes.
still opt out, correct?
They can opt out by just not requesting
not
books
requesting.
from us.
Thank
It's
you.
not but if they do want to use materials from USIMAC, we just have an MOU that explains, it defines the relationship between the districts and and us. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Thank
And
you.
so it doesn't cost anything to opt out or opt in. It's
Right.
just you utilize our services, sign the MOU, just we're in agreement about the policies and how we're going to do things together. But other than that, there's no other requirement.
Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Linda Hansen.
So as Michelle noted, we got 3 emails this morning about this, and I think it sounds to me like you've resolved it, but they may not know you've resolved it. So I wonder, apparently you had a meeting with a bunch of TVIs and back in April. I wonder, have you sent information out to them knowing, okay, we had this meeting and these are the steps we took afterwards, so that they know that you've changed some things? Because it sounds like they're complaining about things that you say are already resolved.
Yeah, no, we met with special ed directors after that meeting, and so the idea now is the special ed directors will take that to their TVIs in their districts, and so we'll continue to make sure that that happens, it trickles down. I have not sent out any other communication to the TVIs directly, but I have met with special ed directors.
Do you have the ability to send something out to the TVIs directly? Do you know who they are? And
Oh, yeah, I know who they are, and I certainly can. However, it just makes more sense to talk to the special ed directors, who will then explain that to their TVIs. But yes,
Superintendent, do you have a?
I do. What was causing the problems is that we were working directly with teachers from the districts, and their supervisors were not aware of what was going on. So now we're just working through the chain of command so that the special ed directors are up to date and aware of everything, and the teachers answer to them instead of, there were a lot of misunderstandings because in the ranks you would have different kind of understandings of what happened previously and what's happened now. So we're working through the administrations in those districts to make it very clear to
apparently
everybody
the
now.
water's not getting to the end of the row.
Well, right, and
That's correct.
that's really the responsibility of the districts to do that. The problems came because we were contacting directly their teachers before.
I understand
yeah.
that, but the problem, actually, it's the district's problem, yes, but in a way, it's ours because we're the ones getting the emails, right? And they're the one,
Right.
and they're complaining about you guys when they just need to have the information,
Yeah.
so, anyway.
So if you get an email from anyone, please forward it to us, and we'll make sure it gets right back to their district, and we work with them directly and make sure that their teachers are aware of what that is. But we don't want to leave their administrators out of the loop, if that makes sense. So, yeah, just forward those right to us, and Armando will take care of it.
Board Member Davis.
So just along that same vein, it looks like from one of these emails that representatives from 6 districts met with you, teachers from 6 districts, and it seems like I kind of heard you were taking that feedback and making some changes. Could you summarize those changes for us that you have made based on the feedback from that? I wasn't at that meeting. I think you were at that meeting, but could you summarize the changes that have been made based on that?
The main 2 changes is the one, that students are able to, so the materials that we send out, if the student still needs it throughout the summer or the following school year, there is a process by which they can renew it.
Hey, one sec. Hey, Scott, if that's you, can you put it on mute? Who's ever on the line?
Sorry, should be muted.
Well, it's not. Apparently, it's not.
Now it is. So
Thank you.
Great change.
So that's that's a change. The reason, I mean, there's federal guidelines by which things have to return into repository, but there's a way we can return it into repository without having to physically have the material there. We just take scans of the photographs of the barcodes, and then we can renew it for that student who needs the materials for the next year. So that's one major one. The other one is, it was really not a change, but it's at the discretion of the ex officio trustee of the federal funds, the quota funds, to utilize the money of the quota funds in the best use for the students in the state. And so what was asked of me is, can the money that is left over at the very end of the year be sent back, if you will, to the districts for them to use? And I said, yes, that is a consideration. We can send back some of that money for the districts to use for their students, of course. And so that is something we're working on actually right now. So we can send that out because the end of the fiscal year for the quota funds is October 1st.
Can I just follow up?
Okay, follow up.
just being clear, so they asked for money that was left over at the end of the year, or they asked for funds to be sent so they could purchase books outside of
So
USIMAT?
there's a certain amount that we allot to them up front, and then some districts decide to use all of it, some don't use any of it. It depends on what their needs are. And so at the end of the year, the money that has not been used by certain districts, then we can gather that and then reissue, if you will, to all the districts again to use if they would like in this fiscal year, in this school year, 2020. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And it's, again, at the discretion, at the need, whatever the need is for that
Last one.
student.
Last one.
Last one. What are those, have those amounts changed recently? I mean, why are they upset and why did they come to meet with you? Was there a change in the amounts that were allotted to the folks in the field?
There was a change in the amount that was allotted. It went from 40% that we reserved for textbooks and for Braille textbooks that we used to 50%. So there was a 10% change there. And then last year, instead of at the very end of the year, instead of sending that money back, which was the practice in previous years, I used the money that was left over to stock up on items that they could check out throughout the year based on what I saw the need was, which is within the rules of the quota funds. I'm just going back and going back to the old way of doing things and reissuing that back, yes.
Thank you.
Board Member Earl.
Did I skip you? Oh, okay. Just a couple things. I'm curious on the storage of the books. I've recently gone up to, here in Salt Lake, the Tabernacle Choir, and looked at their storage of music. So when you're talking about these volumes of Braille being so large, I'm just curious, how does that work? And if it's a textbook, is it divided into several books, and then is that how that works?
Yeah, so a textbook can be divided into up to 50, 60 volumes, depending how big the textbook is.
Yeah.
For Braille, because Braille is very.
That's why I
takes
was
a lot of
wondering how that
space.
works. So you would check out 1, 2, 3 of the first part of the textbook?
No, actually,
or-
we would send the whole book if it were available to the LEA, to the student. If we're producing the book or having it produced, it does come in sections because it's, we're ahead of the student by a few weeks, but we'll send out the first couple of units and then send out the next couple of units as they need it and keep going throughout the year, because it could take up to about 12 months to finish a textbook in Braille from scratch, when we have to start from scratch. So that's how we do it. We do send it out in parcel if needed, but usually if we have it on the shelf, then we just send out the whole book to them.
Okay. And what is I still am
could
curious on the
be-
storage facility there.
Oh, so it's just
like a warehouse?
It's a warehouse. Yeah, it's a warehouse with a lot of shelves, and we put it on the shelf. There was a time when the shelves were all full, and we had storage above the shelf in boxes. That's when we had eBay, the previous format of Braille. Since we are no longer utilizing eBay, a lot of those books have been sent elsewhere, if you will, to other parts of the world that need those books, and then we are now stocking up on the new format, which is UAB.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Belknap.
Thank you, Chair. I think some of the issue here was the lack of communication of the changes that came, and not that it didn't get distributed, it just never was discussed. And I appreciate that you have taken these under consideration, and I do understand the procedure to tell the district and have them feed the information, but concerned that it's not getting down. But my other question, is that we're talking about that they need to return the supplies. My question is, why? Is it law, policy, or just the way you want to do it?
Well, it's in the guidelines for the federal quota funds.
Okay, it's guidelines, it's not required.
Well, I asked that question when I went to training at APH,
Okay.
and APH says it's obligatory that we follow the guideline. And I said, well, the guideline says that best practice is that we keep it in repository for students to use throughout the next couple, you know, as
It's not
needed.
part of receiving funds for it. It's a good guideline.
Right, it's good practice.
Okay.
But there is, in there, it talks about, there's two separate items in the guidelines. It talks about, one, what is good practice, and two, what is required. And it is required that it comes back in repository. It does say, it says it's a requirement that the items come back in repository.
Will you show that to me?
Sure,
Will you send-
definitely.
will you send
I will
one
send
me?
that to you as well.
Will you send it
To
through Ms. Lorraine,
and
please?
Oh,
then-
Ms. Lorraine, sorry.
Because I would like to see where in the federal requirements that it tells you
Sure.
you have to do that.
Of course.
Thank you, Armando.
You're welcome.
Superintendent, I'm not seeing any other questions or
No,
comments. Did you want to follow up with anything?
well, maybe just to wrap it up, we wanted the board to know, especially the new members, welcome to the board, by the way, just that this is really your program. And so the way we operate is under the direction of the special ed department here. Armando is the trustee and this is a board program, even though it's housed at USDB. It's really a statewide program and so forth. And I think it's more for convenience and administration than anything, that we had to find some place to put it, and it made sense at the time, which was before I was even a board member, a long time ago. And so, anyway, probably once a year or so, Armando will be here. Unless you would like to have access to him more often, you're welcome to contact him anytime for any additional questions that you have. But this really is yours, your baby, and so we wanted you to be familiar with it and comfortable asking questions if you ever have them.
Board Member Hanson?
So does Armando work for you, or does he work for the state?
Yes.
He works for both. He works for you.
He-
He works
he-
for USDB.
So he reports directly through Carolyn, who's our
Right.
associate superintendent for
So
the blind
he's a-
school, but he runs a program that is the board program. It's not a USDB program per se. You have just
But
placed.
he is a USDB employee.
He is technically a USDB employee
Okay.
as a person. USIMAC is a State Board of Education program.
Can we go take a tour? Is that
Oh, yeah.
possible?
Of course.
And-
Yes, you're welcome.
And, yeah, there's stuff to see, right?
Yes.
Oh,
If we go in,
yeah,
yeah.
we'd love to have you come by.
Awesome.
Yeah, please.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to make that distinction is just because I wanted you to know that I don't really make policies or oversee policies for USIMAC. It's a federal program and a state program, so not that it matters, but we're all one team, so to speak, but that's how it's been set up, and I want you to.
We have a couple other board comments or questions, and board members, I want you to pay attention to the clock and
Oh, yeah.
what's also on the agenda. So Board Member Davis.
Okay, last question. This is kind of new to me, so I'm trying to understand it all. And thank you for the presentation, because it's really helpful. Just to try to help resolve some of these concerns, help me understand with the 40 to 50%. So in the past, we were keeping 40% for statewide supplies, and now we're keeping 50% and sending the other 50% to the folks in the field. And when just explain the opt-in and opt-out to me. When they opt into the program, does that other 50% go back to you, or do they keep that for supplies in the field and they can still access theoretically what could have been considered the other 50% with your program? Or does the 50% you sent to the field actually not get sent to them and they stay there and they just work solidly through
Right.
you?
So the way we work is, the way these funds work, and this is only a portion of the budget, right? This is only a small portion of the budget, but the way these federal funds, quota funds work is that they are allocated, they're sent to APH, American Printing House for the Blind. They are the ones that administer the grant. Then they allocate that to us based on a census done per LEA. And so what I do is then 50% of what's allocated, I reserve for the production of Braille and large print and materials that are needed to do that. And sometimes we have a lot of production, other times we don't. This year we did, only because it's a new format, Braille format, so we had to produce more because there's not a lot you can buy out and about. And so it's allocated to them, but the money's never sent to them. Any orders that they make has to come through the trustee, and so my assistant is the one that orders everything for every LEA. And so when that order comes in, it's deducted from their allocation.
So it's like a credit.
It's like a credit.
It's like a credit.
It's a line of credit, if you will.
Yeah, whether they use it or not.
Whether they use it or not. Now, if they don't use it, then I can reallocate that credit to the districts for those who might use it, who might have a bigger need or have a need for that. And that's what we're talking about that I will do in August, September, towards the end of the fiscal year.
So if you're to color the money, the money gets a color, it goes to you, it stays in your will. It doesn't go, none of it ever makes it to the LEA. It's just an opportunity to purchase.
Correct.
Or use.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Board Member Cannon?
Federal programs always have a lot of nuances, yes.
Yeah. Well, my question was similar. I was going to ask you, here on slide 8, you talk about new 2018 funding ends cost share program for the LEAs. So can you tell us maybe how it used to be for the LEAs and how it is under the new funding? Because I think that might be where some of these issues are coming from.
I will try my best to describe what happened before. The problem is I came in 2018 when the cost share program was ended. So my understanding of the cost share program was that districts and LEAs throughout the state that would like to avail themselves of the USIMAC services would have to opt in, and when they opt in, then a certain amount, they would have to pay a certain amount into USIMAC in order for USIMAC then to produce books and materials for them.
And where would the pay-in money come from?
From their budgets, from the LEA's budgets.
Their district budget, okay.
Yeah. And so it was done through the UCA, I believe, and once they opt in, then we would send a bill to them, and then they would pay that bill to USIMAC. And then that helped fund the production, but it didn't help fund all of the production. It was just a very small sliver of the budget that would help in the production of those materials. As I said, like one book cost $35,000. An opt-in for a sizable district might have been maybe $7,000 or $8,000, maybe $10,000 at the most.
All right, so I think the feeling that I'm hearing in these emails is that we used to get money for our Braille materials, and now all that money's gone to you, and we'd rather spend it the way we want to instead of going through you.
Yeah, they never received money. It was always a credit, but it was up to the EOT then to approve the expenditures.
EOT?
The EOT is the ex officio trustee of the federal quota account. So each state superintendent appoints someone in the state to be the ex officio trustee of that money, who will then disperse the money, create the policies, make sure that it's the materials are held in repository for other students, etc. I was appointed the ex officio trustee for the statewide funds. There's also a different account that Carolyn's over, because she's the ex officio trustee of the blind school, and so the blind school has a different account than statewide LEAs, and so but there was never money that went to the districts. It was just, again, a credit, and then the ex officio trustee, my predecessor, would then approve those expenditures as they were requested.
So under the old program, did districts have more ability to request what they wanted than they do now?
No, it was basically the same, except they were like I mentioned last year, the money that was left over at the end of the year, I did not disperse that to the LEAs, and so I think that was more of the cry you're hearing, if you will,
Okay.
because according to the rules, I wanted to stack up in repository things so that when people requested them, we had them in stock and they could use them. But this year I'm going back, and we're going to be redistributing some of that money back to the districts for their use. If they don't use it, then at that point, then we will.
Let me just dive in. You just said we redistribute it back to the district.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like saying, okay, we're going to send money back to the district. What you're tell me if what you're doing is you're redoing that
Correct.
allocation.
We
to
were
give them-
distributing the
expand their
allocation.
credit.
Right, the
So
credit
that's where
allocation.
it still gets misleading in, even in our conversation.
It's
that,
hard.
Oh, we're going to give it back to the district. You never gave, what you give is a credit.
Correct.
And so, I mean, that's where we're at on it. So that's probably where that, sorry to interrupt there, but
Oh, perfect.
that adds to the confusion. Board Member Davis, you have another one?
Just last one. Prior to the change, the 2018 change, when they were opting in, so was their credit allocation, did they use that to order then through APH, or were they always using that to order through you? Or is ordering through APH even an option?
No, so the opt-in fees became part of USIMAC's operating budget.
Okay.
The APH funds are distributed by the federal government. It's a fund that's distributed to APH for use of students who are identified in the census. Only those students can avail themselves. So it wasn't even all the students in the state that are visually impaired. It was just the blind students that were actually identified in the census can actually utilize. We can only utilize those funds for those students. So it's a portion of the budget, but it's a very small portion of the full USIMAC budget. Most of our funding comes from the state legislature, and that's our budget. Like, for example, just to give you an idea, our operating budget this year, I believe, was $1,500,000 or so, and our allocation from APH was $135,000 for the statewide. Actually, that's the total. That's the total for both accounts. So it was for the statewide, it was even less than that. So it gives you an idea of how much we're talking about compared to the full USIMAC budget.
Thank you. And the mic's going good.
Mic drop.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Superintendent, we're good? Okay, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our superintendent's report. Superintendent Coleman.
Thank you. Board members, you have in your packet some photographs of a couple of different items for the part of my superintendent's report. The first one is several photos from our summer camps. We hold about 50 summer camps throughout the state for students who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, or visually impaired, or deaf-blind. And so those are just a few. If you look on our website or social media, you can see a lot more, and we've just had a great summer with that. I personally visited some of them. I went to a STEM camp with some kids, and I was happy to see that we had students who are not our students during the school year, some of who are not even served by our outreach teachers. But we've been trying to push the word out about the resources we have so that others can take advantage of that. And so we provided interpreters or whatever accessibility technology they need. And it's been a great summer to keep those kids learning, keep their minds active. The other set of pictures you have is from a visit that we took to the Springville campus recently. It's on track, still to be finished before Christmas. And it's really exciting after all these years of building it on paper and the budgeting and the challenges we've had. It's nice to see the actual physical building and walk through it, and it feels like it'll be a really great place. We've spent the last few weeks working very hard on prioritizing our carry-forward projects that are our one-time building projects, trying to get classrooms painted and those kind of things before the kids come. Staff is doing a great job. Our hiring is mostly done, except we still have a bunch of openings like we do every year that are difficult to fill. I think the blind school, are you pretty filled except for some aides?
Yep.
A couple aide positions. Deaf school has 12 teaching openings?
Oh, no, sorry.
12 aide positions that are unfilled.
Those are the ones I'm most concerned about right
How many teaching positions?
now. We have 5.
We have about 5 teaching positions, and so working hard to do that. And we're actually looking at some solutions in the future to maybe offer some scholarships to people in college like we did when we had a shortage of teachers of the visually impaired a few years ago. We made that available, and it helped to fill the pipeline. So we're looking at maybe doing the same thing in the future there. We're getting prepared. And on the 15th is our opening institute with all of our teachers from around the whole state. They come together to our Salt Lake campus. We've prepared a calendar, and I'll be mailing out links to you for those of you who've been asking of all USDB events. So whenever you want to drop in or just be aware of what's going on, you'll have access to that. And we're making it on a Google Calendar so that you can pull it up on your phone and hide it if you want to also, if that's how you operate. It'll also be on our website. And that will include staff-type meetings, faculty gatherings, but most importantly, the student activities as well. And we've been working on our emergency plans. Those will be coming together this fall so that we incorporate all the new technology and the building locks and automated entries and all of that we had. And recently we hosted the superintendents from around the western United States that just came to our campus from Schools for the Deaf and some from Schools for the Deaf and Blind. And we just had a powwow, which I think was actually more helpful than some conferences. And it was great. But it was nice to do that because we get a little bit of a perspective on what other states offer. And you are providing an education here in this state that is second to none for students who are deaf and blind. I can confidently say that. So, quite often they say, how can you help us get our legislature to do for us what yours does for you here in Utah? And so that's, I thought, was really just good feedback to have. And we learned a lot from them. They learned from us, and it was good to have that perspective. So that is just a quick and dirty superintendent's report, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions. Otherwise, that's all I have for today.
Questions, comments? Thank you for the report and updates, and we continue to get those updates weekly, and appreciate it. So thank you.
Betcha.
Board members, at this time, I'm seeking a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of individuals. Motion second. Second, Newell, or over here? Who had it?
I just need a second.
You got the second. This is a roll call vote. We'll start with Board Member Gravett.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we're going into executive session.